Welcome to 22 Crime, where today's episode dives into the dark secrets behind the Lululemon murder. Viewer discretion is advised. 22 is a true crime podcast that delves into real-life crime stories, which often involve graphic descriptions, sensitive content, and strong language that may not be suitable for all audiences. We strive to present these cases with the utmost respect for the victims and their families. Please note that the content discussed may be distressing or triggering for some listeners. Additionally, all resources and information presented in this podcast are obtained from publicly available internet sources. Listener discretion is strongly advised, and we recommend that only mature audiences proceed with caution. If you are sensitive to such content, please consider watching another video. Stay safe and take care of your mental health. Welcome to today's episode of The Dark Secrets Behind the Lululemon Murder. In this chilling tale, we delve into a crime that shocked the upscale community of Bethesda, Maryland, and garnered national attention. The brutal murder of Jayna Murray inside a Lululemon store was not just a tragedy, but a baffling mystery that left a trail of questions and intrigue. Jayna Murray, a vibrant and promising young woman, met a horrific end at the hands of her co-worker, Brittany Norwood. What makes this case particularly disturbing is not just the brutality of the crime but the lengths to which Norwood went to cover her tracks, weaving a tale of a random violent attack that sent shockwaves through the community and beyond. In this episode, we will explore every facet of this case, from the seemingly ordinary setting of an athletic wear store to the dark undercurrents that led to a heinous act. We'll unpack the events leading up to that fateful night, the unfolding investigation, the trial that gripped the nation, and the aftermath that continues to reverberate. Join us as we navigate through court documents, interviews, news articles, and expert analyses to piece together the events and motivations behind the Lululemon murder. This isn't just a story about a crime, it's a story about the human psyche, societal pressures, and the dark corners of the human mind. Stay tuned as we uncover the layers of this case and remember Jayna Murray, a woman whose life was tragically cut short, but whose story must be told. Bethesda, Maryland is an affluent and serene community, known for its upscale shops, tree-lined streets, and a sense of safety. The Bethesda Row Shopping Center, where the Lululemon store was located, epitomized this atmosphere with its mix of boutiques, restaurants, and cultural venues. The Lululemon store, nestled among these establishments, catered to a clientele that valued wellness, fitness, and high-quality athletic wear. The store's interior, with polished wooden floors and softly lit displays, created a welcoming ambience, encouraging customers to browse and engage in discussions about health and fitness. Jayna Murray was a vibrant and adventurous individual, known for her positivity and ambition. As a graduate student at Johns Hopkins University pursuing an MBA, she balanced her academic pursuits with her work at Lululemon. Jayna's passion for physical fitness extended beyond the store. She loved hiking, climbing, and yoga. Her leadership and motivational skills made her a valued employee and a source of inspiration for both colleagues and customers. Jayna's strong sense of ethics and responsibility was a testament to her close-knit family background, where education and hard work were highly valued. Her personality was multifaceted. She was warm, approachable, and deeply committed to personal growth and the well-being of others. Jayna often shared stories of her adventures, encouraging her peers to explore their passions. Her ability to balance a demanding academic schedule, a challenging job, and an active lifestyle made her a role model for many. This blend of academic excellence, professional dedication, and love for life highlighted Jayna's multifaceted personality and deepened the sense of loss felt by her community after her tragic death. Brittany Norwood's life contrasted sharply with Jayna's. A former college soccer player, Brittany had a competitive nature and athletic background. However, her post-college life was marked by instability and issues with honesty and theft. Known for her charm, she could also be manipulative, often causing friction with those around her. Her professional relationship with Jayna was strained, exacerbated by an incident where she was caught stealing a pair of leggings from the store. This discovery threatened her job and reputation, pushing her into a state of desperation. Brittany's personal struggles hinted at deeper psychological issues. While she maintained a confident exterior, she often felt insecure and out of control. Her history of dishonesty and theft suggested a pattern of behavior driven by a need to assert dominance and protect her image. The professional tension between Brittany and Jayna was palpable, as Jayna's ethical and disciplined approach clashed with Brittany's opportunistic tendencies. This tension was not only professional but also personal, as Brittany increasingly felt overshadowed by Jayna's accomplishments and the respect she commanded among their peers. The Lululemon store, outwardly peaceful, was a workplace with underlying tensions. The company's policy requiring employees to check each other's bags for stolen merchandise created an environment of mistrust. This policy became a catalyst for the conflict between Jayna and Brittany. Jayna's commitment to the rules and ethical behavior contrasted sharply with Brittany's more self-serving actions. The discovery of the stolen leggings was a tipping point, revealing the stark differences in their values and exacerbating the already strained atmosphere. This clash of personalities and principles set the stage for a dramatic and violent confrontation. Jayna represented structured ambition and integrity, while Brittany's life was characterized by chaos and a desperate need to maintain control. This dichotomy of values and lifestyles intensified the underlying animosity, culminating in a tragic and violent outcome. The setting and characters of this story provide a backdrop that underscores the complexity of human behavior and the tragic consequences of unresolved conflicts. The evening of March 11, 2011, seemed routine as Jayna Murray and Brittany Norwood prepared to close the Lululemon store in Bethesda, Maryland. As part of the store's policy, Jayna conducted a standard bag check and discovered a pair of unpaid-for leggings in Brittany's bag. This discovery was more than just a violation of store policy. It was a serious breach of trust that could lead to Brittany's termination. The tension was immediate and palpable, as this moment marked a critical point of conflict between the two women. After leaving the store at 9:45 p.m., Jayna took a decisive step by calling the store manager to report the theft. This action underscored her commitment to her responsibilities and ethical standards, but it also signaled the beginning of a life-altering crisis for Brittany. Faced with the threat of losing her job and being exposed as a thief, Brittany's fear and desperation began to escalate. She quickly devised a plan to retrieve the stolen item and potentially mitigate the consequences. Brittany called Jayna, feigning that she had left her wallet inside the store and asked to be let back in. Unaware of the impending danger, Jayna agreed to return to the store, demonstrating her helpful nature. Once inside, the atmosphere rapidly deteriorated. The conversation about the stolen leggings quickly escalated into a heated argument. In a sudden and violent outburst, Brittany attacked Jayna with a ferocity that was shocking. The attack was not an impulsive lash-out but rather a sustained, methodical onslaught. Brittany grabbed whatever object she could find, a hammer, a wrench, a rope, a knife, and a metal peg, turning the store into a scene of unimaginable violence. The assault was brutal and prolonged. Jayna was struck repeatedly, her body accumulating 331 distinct injuries. Forensic analysis later revealed the severity and variety of these injuries, indicating the use of multiple weapons and a horrifying level of violence. The extent of Jayna's injuries was indicative of a desperate fight for her life. 107 of these wounds were defensive, suggesting she had tried valiantly to protect herself from the relentless attack. The final fatal blow, a stab wound to the back of her head that severed her spinal cord, was delivered with such force that it pierced her brain. This injury ensured that Jayna's last moments were filled with pain and terror. In the aftermath of the murder, Brittany's actions were chillingly calculated. She immediately began to stage the crime scene to mislead investigators. Brittany inflicted superficial wounds on herself and bound her hands and feet using zip ties, creating the illusion that she had been a victim of the same attack. She went further by putting on a pair of men's size 14 sneakers, walking through Jayna's blood, and leaving false footprints throughout the store. This act was intended to support her fabricated story of two male assailants, adding a layer of complexity to the crime scene. The staging included trashing the store to simulate a struggle and sexual assault, even tearing Jayna's clothing to add credibility to her story. At around 10:30 p.m., employees at the neighboring Apple store heard noises that were unusual and alarming. They reported hearing shouting, scuffling, and cries for help. One particularly chilling plea, "Oh God, please help me," was heard. but it was dismissed by the employees as merely drama. This tragic misunderstanding led them to do nothing, a decision that would later be criticized. The lack of immediate action allowed the true events to unfold without intervention, contributing to the horror of the situation. As the night progressed, Brittany waited in the store's bathroom, bound and injured, awaiting discovery. Her demeanor and the scene she crafted were meant to portray her as another victim, an innocent bystander caught in a violent robbery. However, the truth would soon unravel. The Bethesda community, known for its safety and affluence, was left in shock. The gruesome details of the crime, combined with the calculated efforts to mislead authorities, turned the Lululemon store into a chilling crime scene. The brutality of the attack and the cold, premeditated nature of the cover-up shattered the community's sense of security. The events of March 11, 2011, were a devastating blend of violence, fear, and deception. Brittany Norwood's actions, driven by a desperate need to hide her wrongdoing, resulted in the tragic death of Jayna Murray. The detailed forensic analysis and subsequent investigation revealed the lengths to which Brittany went to avoid accountability. Her elaborate staging of the crime scene, combined with her manipulation of the narrative, marked her actions as not only violent but also deeply calculating. This night became a haunting reminder of the fragility of trust and the extreme consequences of deceit and desperation. The Bethesda community, reeling from the shock, would grapple with the aftermath of this tragedy for years to come. On the morning of March 12, 2011, the manager of the Bethesda Lululemon Athletica store, Rachel Ortley, arrived to open the store. Immediately, she noticed something was amiss. The front door was unlocked, which was unusual and against store protocol. Upon entering, she found mannequins toppled over and merchandise scattered across the floor, indicating a chaotic disturbance had taken place the previous night. Feeling a sense of dread, Rachel hesitated to proceed further into the store alone. She asked a passerby, Ryan, for assistance in checking the back of the store. As Ryan ventured further in, he made a horrific discovery. Jayna Murray lay lifeless in a pool of blood, and Brittany Norwood was found bound and seemingly injured. Rachel quickly called 911, describing the scene to the dispatcher. Police and emergency responders arrived promptly and were immediately struck by the brutality of the scene. Jayna Murray had been subjected to a violent and prolonged attack, sustaining over 330 injuries from at least 5 different weapons, including a hammer, wrench, knife, merchandise peg, and a rope. The medical examiner later determined that 107 of these wounds were defensive, indicating Jayna had fought desperately for her life. Her injuries were so severe that an open casket at her funeral was deemed impossible. Brittany Norwood, found in the bathroom with her hands and feet bound, initially claimed that 2 masked men had entered the store after hours, assaulted and raped both women, and then murdered Jayna. Norwood's injuries, however, were relatively minor, consisting of superficial cuts and bruises. She told the police that the assailants had spared her life because she was more fun to assault, a statement that struck investigators as bizarre. Initially, the police treated Norwood as a victim and launched a manhunt for the supposed attackers, asking local stores if anyone had recently purchased ski masks and other suspicious items. The Bethesda community, known for its tranquility, was thrown into a state of fear and disbelief at the possibility of violent assailants at large. However, as investigators delved deeper into Norwood's story, inconsistencies began to emerge. Detectives found only 2 sets of footprints in the store, one belonging to Norwood and the other to a pair of size 14 sneakers that were found inside the store. Additionally, there was no evidence of sexual assault on either woman, and Norwood's wounds appeared to be self-inflicted. Further scrutiny of the scene revealed more contradictions. Norwood's blood was found in Jayna's car, which had been moved to a nearby parking lot. When questioned, Norwood initially denied having been in the car, but later changed her story, claiming the attackers had forced her to move it. The detectives also noted that the bindings on Norwood's wrists and ankles were not as tight as they should have been if she had been tied up by someone else, suggesting she had bound herself. Investigators interviewed employees at the Apple store adjacent to Lululemon. They reported hearing sounds of a struggle and cries for help on the night of the murder. Despite the alarming noises, they had not intervened, assuming it was a personal argument. This inaction later drew significant public criticism and added to the complexity of the case. The investigation intensified as police pieced together the forensic evidence and witness testimonies. Norwood's dramatic portrayal of the attackers as racist, sadistic rapists appeared increasingly implausible. Her composed demeanor during police interviews and the mounting evidence against her painted a picture of a calculated individual attempting to evade responsibility for a heinous crime. On March 18, 2011, exactly 1 week after the murder, Brittany Norwood was arrested. The arrest marked a pivotal moment in the investigation, bringing a semblance of relief to a community on edge. The police's meticulous work in gathering evidence and exposing the truth behind Norwood's fabricated story was crucial in securing her arrest. The Bethesda community, once considered a haven of safety, was deeply shaken by the brutal nature of the crime and the initial misdirection in the investigation. The case drew national attention, highlighting issues of workplace violence, the effectiveness of law enforcement, and the psychological profile of individuals capable of such extreme violence. The investigation into Jayna Murray's murder was a complex and multifaceted process. It involved not only unraveling Norwood's intricate web of lies, but also dealing with the emotional and psychological impact on the community and those involved. The dedication and thoroughness of the investigative team ultimately led to the truth, ensuring that justice was served for Jayna Murray and her grieving family. As detectives delved deeper into Brittany Norwood's narrative, the discrepancies in her account became increasingly apparent. Initially portraying the incident as a brutal attack by two masked men, Norwood described a harrowing ordeal where these assailants allegedly beat and raped both her and Jayna Murray. However, several elements of her story immediately raised red flags for investigators. The first issue was the nature and extent of the injuries sustained by both women. Murray had suffered over 331 distinct wounds, a mix of blunt force trauma, stabs, and slashes inflicted with a variety of weapons including a wrench, a hammer, a rope, a merchandise peg, and a knife. These injuries indicated a prolonged and violent struggle. In stark contrast, Norwood's injuries were superficial and self-inflicted, inconsistent with the brutality described. This discrepancy led detectives to question why such a severe disparity existed if the same attackers had targeted both women with the same intent. Moreover, Norwood's narrative about the men sparing her life because she was more fun to have sex with appeared not only callous but also implausible. The details seemed to sensationalize the incident, aligning too neatly with a stereotypical portrayal of violent offenders, which made investigators skeptical. Her calm demeanor during the recounting of these events further exacerbated doubts, as it seemed incongruent with someone who had allegedly experienced such trauma. Investigators meticulously examined the physical evidence at the crime scene, which revealed only two sets of footprints, those of Murray and Norwood. This finding directly contradicted Norwood's claim of multiple attackers. Further compounding the implausibility of her story, the men's size 14 sneakers that Norwood described the attackers as wearing were found within the store, and it became evident that Norwood had used them to create false footprints, attempting to mislead investigators about the presence of others. Another critical inconsistency arose regarding the movement of Jayna Murray's car. Norwood had initially denied being in the car, but later claimed she had been forced to move it by the attackers. The discovery of Norwood's DNA in the vehicle contradicted her initial statement and suggested her active role in manipulating the crime scene. This finding led to further questions about her account's validity and whether the crime scene had been staged to cover her actions. Norwood's portrayal of the attackers as racially abusive and sexually violent further complicated the narrative. The absence of any forensic evidence supporting her claim of sexual assault, coupled with the lack of foreign DNA, undermined her story. These fabrications seemed designed to evoke a visceral response and shift focus from her possible involvement. However, forensic experts found that the supposed binding injuries on Norwood's wrists and ankles were self-inflicted and superficial, inconsistent with the severe bindings typically inflicted by attackers. The testimony from the Apple Store employees added another layer to the unraveling of Norwood's narrative. The employees heard a violent altercation through the shared wall, describing a woman's voice, presumably Jayna's, pleading desperately for help. Phrases like, "Talk to me, don't do this," "Oh God, please help me," were heard, indicating a personal emotional conflict rather than a chaotic random attack by strangers. As detectives pieced together the timeline and forensic evidence, the theory emerged that the crime was not a random act of violence but a desperate and premeditated cover-up by Norwood. The confrontation between Norwood and Murray over the stolen leggings likely escalated into a violent outburst from Norwood, who, in a bid to prevent the theft from being reported and losing her job, resorted to extreme violence. The brutal assault, carried out with such intensity and over an extended period, indicated a deeply personal rage rather than a spontaneous crime. Faced with these mounting inconsistencies and the forensic evidence, detectives moved to arrest Brittany Norwood on March 18, 2011, a week after the murder. The arrest marked a dramatic shift in the case narrative, from a presumed victim survivor to the sole perpetrator of a heinous crime. This revelation shocked the community and drew intense media attention, as the gruesome nature of the crime and the calculated deception attempted by Norwood became public knowledge. In the days following her arrest, the public grappled with the shocking reality of the case. Norwood's story, initially accepted with empathy and horror, was now seen as a facade masking a brutal, self-serving act of violence. The investigation revealed a portrait of a young woman whose desperation and fear of exposure led her to commit an unthinkable act and attempt to manipulate the narrative to her advantage. The unraveling of her story not only brought her actions into the spotlight but also highlighted the meticulous work of law enforcement in seeking justice for Jayna Murray. As the case moved towards trial, the focus would shift to the courtroom, where the prosecution and defense would present their arguments, and Norwood's carefully constructed lies would be further dissected. This phase promised to provide deeper insights into the psychological and emotional underpinnings of this tragic event, as well as the legal repercussions for Norwood's actions. The murder of Jayna Murray by Brittany Norwood initially appeared to be rooted in a relatively minor issue, the discovery of shoplifting. Murray's discovery of the stolen leggings led to a confrontation that spiraled into lethal violence. However, this surface-level motive doesn't fully explain the extremity of the crime. The depth and brutality of the attack indicate underlying psychological issues and potential factors beyond a simple desire to avoid consequences for theft. Norwood's history of deceit and theft, highlighted by her previous accusations of stealing from college teammates, suggests a pattern of dishonest behavior. This repeated pattern raises questions about possible kleptomania, a disorder characterized by an irresistible urge to steal items of little personal value. However, the brutal nature of Murray's murder suggests more complex psychological issues at play. The crime scene revealed over 330 wounds on Murray's body, inflicted by at least 5 different weapons. Such extensive violence, especially when combined with 107 defensive wounds, points to an act of overkill. This suggests that Norwood's actions were driven by intense rage, possibly mixed with elements of sadism. The use of multiple weapons and the protracted nature of the attack imply a compulsion to inflict suffering, possibly reflecting deep-seated anger or psychological disturbance. The combination of manipulative behavior, lack of empathy, and extreme violence could suggest traits associated with psychopathy or severe narcissism. Norwood's calculated efforts to cover up the crime, including self-inflicted injuries and the elaborate staging of the scene, demonstrate a high level of cunning and an awareness of her actions' consequences. This behavior indicates a capacity for premeditation and a disregard for the severity of her actions. The setting of the crime, a high-end retail store, and the culture surrounding Lululemon may have played a role. The brand's association with affluence and the pursuit of a perfect, fit lifestyle could have exacerbated Norwood's insecurities and desire to fit in. This environment may have intensified her sense of inadequacy and failure, contributing to her extreme response when faced with the prospect of exposure and disgrace. Working in a place that promotes an idealized lifestyle may have heightened Norwood's anxiety about maintaining a certain image. The theft of the leggings can be seen as a desperate attempt to acquire status symbols she felt excluded from. This perceived social pressure, combined with her pre-existing psychological vulnerabilities, may have triggered a disproportionately violent reaction when she felt her facade was about to crumble. In summary, the murder of Jayna Murray by Brittany Norwood was not just a result of a single act of theft gone wrong. It was the culmination of a complex interplay of psychological issues, personal insecurities, and societal pressures. Norwood's actions reflect a deeply troubled individual whose response to a minor conflict escalated into a horrific act of violence, highlighting the complexities of human psychology and the potential for darkness in seemingly ordinary situations. The trial of Brittany Norwood, beginning in October 2011, unfolded as one of the most high-profile cases in Montgomery County's history. Presided over by Judge Robert Greenberg at the Montgomery County Circuit Court, the trial revealed the chilling details of Jayna Murray's murder and the lengths Norwood went to cover up her crime. The courtroom proceedings, thoroughly documented in court records and media coverage, provided a comprehensive view of the evidence, legal strategies, and emotional testimonies that shaped the trial's outcome. Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy led the prosecution, meticulously building a case for first-degree murder. The prosecution's narrative focused on the premeditated nature of the crime, highlighting Norwood's deliberate actions before and after the murder. Key pieces of evidence included DNA samples, surveillance footage, and forensic analyses. The prosecution presented a grim picture of the crime scene, emphasizing the brutality of the attack. Jayna Murray had suffered 331 injuries, inflicted with at least 5 different weapons found at the scene: a hammer, wrench, knife, merchandise peg, and rope. The medical examiner's testimony detailed the severity of these injuries, including the 107 defensive wounds, indicating that Murray had fought desperately for her life. The prosecution also presented evidence of Norwood's attempts to stage the crime scene. This included her superficial self-inflicted wounds and the concocted story about masked intruders. Surveillance footage showed Norwood moving Murray's car after the attack, a crucial point that contradicted her initial statements. The prosecution argued that Norwood's actions were not those of a terrified victim, but of a calculated killer attempting to evade justice. Norwood's defense team did not contest the fact that she had killed Murray, but sought to downplay the crime's premeditated nature. They argued that the murder was not planned but resulted from a spontaneous argument that escalated uncontrollably. The defense's strategy aimed to reduce the charge to second-degree murder or manslaughter, focusing on Norwood's lack of a prior criminal record and portraying her as a person who snapped under pressure. They claimed that the argument began over the stolen leggings and quickly spiraled into violence, suggesting that Norwood's actions were driven by fear and panic rather than malice aforethought. The defense also attempted to humanize Norwood, presenting her as a young woman under immense stress, fearing the loss of her job and facing public humiliation. They highlighted her athletic background and relatively clean record as indications of her being a person who made a grievous mistake rather than a cold-blooded murderer. The court heard from various witnesses, including forensic experts, co-workers, and law enforcement officials. One of the most significant pieces of evidence was the detailed forensic analysis presented by the prosecution. This analysis demonstrated that the crime scene had been carefully manipulated to suggest a robbery gone wrong. The presence of only 2 sets of footprints, Norwood's and a pair from a size 14 shoe found at the store, further debunked her story about the involvement of other attackers. Witnesses from the adjacent Apple store provided testimonies about hearing sounds of a struggle and cries for help. These testimonies supported the prosecution's timeline and narrative, further discrediting Norwood's fabricated story of an external assault. After a relatively brief deliberation of just 21 minutes, the jury returned a unanimous verdict of guilty for first-degree murder on November 2, 2011. The swiftness of the verdict underscored the clarity and strength of the evidence against Norwood. The jury's decision reflected a rejection of the defense's argument that the murder was not premeditated. On January 27, 2012, Judge Robert Greenberg sentenced Brittany Norwood to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In his sentencing remarks, Judge Greenberg described the crime as cold-blooded, brutal, calculated, deliberate, devious, malicious. He expressed particular disapproval of Norwood's lack of genuine remorse, noting that she had not taken full responsibility for her actions even during the trial. The judge's stern words underscored the heinous nature of the crime and the calculated efforts to cover it up. The sentencing brought a measure of closure to Jayna Murray's family and friends, who had endured the emotional trial and public scrutiny. The impact statements delivered during the sentencing hearing were poignant, with family members recalling Jayna's vibrant personality and expressing the profound loss they felt. Her parents, David and Phyllis Murray, spoke about the enduring pain of losing their daughter and the irreplaceable void left in their lives. In contrast, Norwood's family and supporters were left devastated by the verdict and sentence. Despite the overwhelming evidence, they struggled to reconcile the image of the Brittany they knew with the one portrayed during the trial. Norwood's own final statement, where she expressed regret but stopped short of a full confession, left many feeling that justice had been served but with a lingering sense of unresolved emotions. The trial and sentencing of Brittany Norwood became a landmark case, not only for its brutality, but also for the legal and psychological issues it raised. It highlighted the complexities of human behavior, the potential for extreme actions under pressure, and the judicial system's role in delivering justice. The case also sparked a broader conversation about workplace safety, the pressures of consumerism, and the signs of psychological distress that often go unnoticed until it's too late. The Lululemon murder case quickly captivated national attention due to its shocking nature and the upscale setting of Bethesda, Maryland. The initial narrative presented by Brittany Norwood, claiming that two masked men were responsible, instilled widespread fear and concern about public safety. Media outlets across the country seized upon the sensational elements of the story, including the affluent backdrop, the high-end retail brand, and the brutal murder of a seemingly innocent woman. As investigators uncovered the truth and revealed Norwood's deceit, the media narrative shifted dramatically. The discovery that the crime was not a random act of violence but a premeditated murder by a co-worker shocked the public. This revelation fueled extensive coverage and analysis, with news segments, newspaper articles, and online forums dissecting the details of the case. Television broadcasts frequently aired footage from the courtroom, including Norwood's inconsistent statements and the chilling forensic evidence. The gruesome specifics of Jayna Murray's injuries, as described in the trial, were relayed to the public, further heightening the sense of horror. True crime enthusiasts and commentators delved into the psychological aspects of the case, attempting to understand Norwood's motives and mental state. Public reaction was marked by a mix of outrage, sadness, and disbelief. Many were horrified by the brutal nature of the crime and the betrayal involved. Vigils and memorials for Jayna Murray highlighted the community's grief and support for her family. The stark contrast between the serene environment of Bethesda and the brutal murder made the crime seem all the more shocking. The case also sparked significant debate about the role of bystanders, particularly the Apple Store employees who heard the altercation but did not intervene. This aspect of the case led to broader discussions on moral responsibility and the bystander effect, questioning how society should respond in moments of crisis. Throughout the trial and sentencing, the public remained deeply engaged, with the media providing continuous updates and analysis. The intense coverage underscored the case's impact not only on the local community but also on a national level. The Lululemon murder became a focal point for discussions on justice, safety, and human behavior, leaving a lasting impression on those who followed the story. The media's role in shaping the public narrative was evident, as it highlighted both the sensational elements of the crime and the complex moral and ethical questions it raised. As the story unfolded, it became a cautionary tale of how quickly a seemingly ordinary situation could turn into a tragedy, altering the lives of everyone involved and capturing the collective attention of a nation. After Brittany Norwood's conviction for the murder of Jayna Murray, the sentencing brought a bittersweet closure to the legal proceedings. The courtroom was filled with emotional outpourings, particularly from the Murray family, who expressed their ongoing grief and sense of loss. Jayna's parents, David and Phyllis Murray, along with her brothers, spoke poignantly about her vibrant life and the void her death left in their lives. They emphasized Jayna's achievements, her positive outlook, and the future she was deprived of. The defense team, representing Norwood, argued for leniency, pointing to her previously clean record and expressing the family's sorrow over the situation. Norwood herself, during the sentencing phase, offered a brief apology, though many found it lacking in genuine remorse. She expressed regret for her actions but stopped short of fully acknowledging the extent of her responsibility. Her family, visibly distressed, struggled to reconcile the Brittany they knew with the person who had committed such a violent act. They faced a dual burden: dealing with public backlash and grappling with their private grief. The Bethesda community, known for its quiet affluence, was rocked by the crime. The murder, happening in such a public and familiar place, shattered the sense of safety and peace. Community members held vigils and memorials for Jayna, expressing their support for her family and their collective shock at the crime. The Lululemon store, a symbol of modern healthy living, became a grim reminder of the violence that occurred. Its eventual reopening was met with mixed feelings as the community tried to move forward while remembering the tragedy. The media's intense coverage also played a role in shaping public perception. The sensational aspects of the case, the violent nature of the crime, the initial false narrative of masked men, and the final revelation of betrayal were extensively reported. This coverage drew in not just local but national and international attention, turning the case into a touchstone for discussions on workplace violence, mental health, and the nature of human deception. Norwood's legal team filed an appeal shortly after the conviction, arguing procedural missteps, particularly regarding her Miranda rights. They claimed that during interrogations, Norwood was not adequately informed of her right to remain silent and to have an attorney present. This argument centered on the contention that her statements to the police were inadmissible, thus questioning the integrity of the trial. Additionally, they challenged the admissibility of certain forensic evidence and the interpretations made by expert witnesses, arguing these were improperly presented as facts rather than opinions. The appeal process brought a new wave of scrutiny and media attention. In 2015, the Maryland Court of Special Appeals reviewed the case. The court meticulously examined the appeal's claims, considering whether any alleged procedural errors could have influenced the trial's outcome. They concluded that, despite the defense's arguments, the evidence against Norwood was overwhelming and sufficient to sustain the conviction. The forensic evidence, combined with witness testimonies and Norwood's inconsistent statements, painted a clear picture of guilt. The court affirmed the life sentence without the possibility of parole, effectively ending her direct appeal options. The affirmation of Norwood's conviction brought some closure but also left lingering questions and emotions. For the Murray family, the legal conclusion allowed them to focus more on preserving Jayna's memory rather than the judicial process. They continued to honor her legacy through the Jayna Murray Foundation, which supports educational initiatives and reflects Jayna's values and passions. For the Norwood family, the finality of the appeals process was devastating. They faced the dual burden of public scorn and personal grief, struggling with the reality of Brittany's actions and their consequences. Public sympathy largely rested with the Murray family, though there was also a nuanced understanding of the complex emotions faced by the Norwoods. The Lululemon murder case remains a point of reference in discussions about workplace dynamics, psychological breakdowns, and the justice system. It highlighted the unpredictability of human behavior and the potential for hidden tensions to erupt into violence. The case also underscored the importance of thorough legal processes and the role of the media in shaping public discourse. As the years pass, the story continues to evoke a wide range of reactions and reflections, from academic analyses of the psychological factors involved to personal reflections from those who knew the victims and perpetrators. The lasting legacy of this case is a stark reminder of the depths of human despair and the importance of empathy and understanding in our social interactions. The Lululemon murder case drew widespread media attention, captivating a nation with its startling contrast, a violent crime in an upscale, seemingly safe area, committed by an unsuspected employee. The stark difference between the peaceful setting of Bethesda, Maryland, and the brutality of the crime amplified the public's fascination. Media coverage was relentless, dissecting every detail and painting a picture of a community stunned by the violence within its midst. The case underscored how crime can occur anywhere, disrupting the perception of safety in affluent neighborhoods. Brittany Norwood's psychological profile became a focal point of analysis. Experts explored possible mental health issues, such as psychopathy or personality disorders, that might explain her actions. Her ability to fabricate stories and manipulate those around her suggested a complex psychological landscape. Discussions also revolved around the potential influence of workplace stress, personal insecurities, and societal pressures on her behavior. The extreme nature of the violence, over 300 injuries, indicated a level of rage and desperation that far exceeded a mere reaction to being caught stealing. Norwood's trial and subsequent appeals highlighted significant aspects of the justice system. Her defense team argued for reduced charges, suggesting the crime was not premeditated. However, the prosecution's detailed presentation of evidence, including Norwood's deliberate actions before and after the murder, led to her conviction for first-degree murder. The appeals process, focusing on issues like Miranda rights and the handling of evidence, showcased the thoroughness and complexities inherent in legal proceedings, especially in ensuring fair trials and upholding justice. The crime deeply impacted the Bethesda community, known for its tranquility and affluence. The involvement of bystanders, particularly the Apple Store employees who overheard the assault but did not intervene, sparked debates on moral responsibility and the bystander effect. This situation forced a communal introspection on how individuals respond to emergencies and the ethical implications of inaction. The event left a lasting scar, altering the community's sense of security and prompting discussions about vigilance and intervention. For Lululemon and other retail businesses, the incident raised critical questions about employee screening, theft prevention, and crisis management. The company's policies, particularly around bag checks and employee security, came under scrutiny. The case emphasized the need for comprehensive training on handling workplace conflicts and addressing mental health concerns. Companies were reminded of the importance of creating supportive environments where issues can be addressed constructively before escalating into crises. The legacy of this case extends beyond the crime itself. It serves as a poignant example of how a seemingly minor incident, shoplifting, can spiral into a catastrophic event due to underlying psychological issues and poor crisis management. The Lululemon murder continues to be a case study in criminal psychology, workplace dynamics, and the justice system's role in addressing complex human behaviors. It remains a topic of interest for its lessons on human nature, the unpredictability of violence, and the societal structures that attempt to mitigate such tragedies. The Lululemon murder remains a profound and unsettling case, not only for the severity of the crime but also for the broader implications it carries. The incident forced a re-examination of issues ranging from workplace dynamics to the psychological underpinnings of violence. As we reflect on the events, several key lessons and unresolved questions stand out, continuing to provoke thought and discussion. At its core, the Lululemon murder highlights the complexity and unpredictability of human behavior. Brittany Norwood's actions, seemingly incongruent with her outward persona, underscore the difficulty in fully understanding what drives individuals to commit such acts. Her case challenges simplistic views of morality and criminality, revealing a spectrum of psychological factors that can influence behavior, including mental health issues, personal insecurities, and environmental pressures. This case also serves as a stark reminder of the importance of corporate responsibility in ensuring the safety and well-being of employees. It prompts businesses to consider the adequacy of their policies, training, and support systems. The tragic outcome at Lululemon emphasizes the need for comprehensive strategies that address not only theft prevention, but also employee relations and mental health awareness. Companies must be vigilant in creating environments where issues can be identified and addressed before they escalate into violence. The public's reaction to the case, particularly the scrutiny faced by the Apple Store employees who did not intervene, brings to light important societal and ethical considerations. The bystander effect and the moral obligation to act in the face of apparent danger are themes that resonate beyond this incident. This aspect of the case encourages ongoing dialogue about individual and collective responsibility in maintaining community safety and preventing harm. Jayna Murray's life and tragic death left a lasting impact on all who knew her and even those who learned about her through the media. The Jayna Murray Foundation stands as a testament to her vibrant spirit and the values she held dear. Her legacy serves as a catalyst for positive change, inspiring efforts to promote safety, support educational opportunities, and foster community awareness. As the years pass, the Lululemon murder continues to serve as a powerful reminder of the potential for violence in everyday settings and the critical importance of vigilance and compassion. It also serves as a case study in the complexities of criminal justice, from investigation to trial and appeals, illustrating the intricate process of seeking justice while upholding legal standards and human rights. In moving forward, the case urges us to remain mindful of the signs of distress in those around us, to foster environments that prioritize mental well-being, and to maintain a commitment to justice and empathy. The lessons learned from this tragedy are valuable not only for preventing future incidents, but also for understanding and addressing the deeper issues that can lead to such devastating outcomes. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the tragic Lululemon murder case. We hope you found this episode insightful and thought-provoking. Before we go, we have a few reminders for you. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with others who might find it interesting. Your support helps us reach a wider audience and continue bringing you these detailed episodes. If you want even more exclusive content, consider joining our Patreon community. As a patron, you'll get access to over 500 pages of news articles, half an hour of news clippings, court files, and the full script of this episode. The link to our Patreon is in the description box below. Also, if you like the images used in this episode, you can purchase them through our Patreon store. While researching this case, we read 2 comprehensive books: The Yoga Store Murder, The Shocking True Account of the Lululemon Athletica Killing by Dan Morse, and Murder in the Yoga Store, The True Story of the Lululemon Killing by Peter Ross Range. You can find affiliate links to these books in the description box. Purchasing through these links won't cost you anything extra, but it helps us keep producing more episodes like this. Additionally, for your convenience, we've marked the chapters in the description so you can easily navigate through the episode. Thank you once again for your support. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next episode of 22 Crime.